deputy press secretary to the president in the communications department of the West Wing. And he's with us now, the hoaxster, Hogan Gidley. Good to have you, Hogan.
It's great to be with you, although you did not need to play that montage to get me fired up. I can promise you that.
Well, we thought we'd do it anyway because it's fun playing it. I don't know how many times have we played that today, Kira? Like 3 times. It's so much fun. Every time we play it, we laugh. And that's only one of many we've got going on this week. Hogan, when is there going to be a accounting for the nonsense that we have faced with this Russian collusion 2-year hoax? $25 million, 2 years, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses. I mean, 230 requests for information, 550 search warrants. When are we going to have a owning up of what went down here?
That is the question. I was on a television program yesterday in which they asked, Hogan, the next step is the report going to be public? And I said, that's not the next step. The next step is whose heads are going to roll for perpetrating a lie on the American people for 2 years. That's the real question here. And this is a victory for Donald Trump. It's a victory for his administration, but it's also a victory for the American people because the media worked systematically to steal this election from them from the moment Donald Trump won, and even before in some instances. So this is one of those things that if you're paying attention, it was the Obama administration that had a surveillance operation on a United States campaign. It was the Obama administration who wiretapped phones. It was an Obama administration who unleashed on a man in Donald Trump based on a discredited, phony, fake dossier and a FISA warrant that no one's yet seen. And someone has to answer for the fact that this country, while great, has been hurt by what these individuals with their own personal, political, power-hungry agendas have wanted to do. And I want to be clear, and you kind of ran through it, but let's just kind of run through the gambit if we may. I was also asked, is Robert Mueller, was it a good investigation? Did he do a good job? And I said, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. Every Democrat told me he was wonderful. Every Democrat said he was the best thing to happen to the legal community on the history of the planet. They said that he was going to do this thing the right way. So after 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, 500 warrants, 40 FBI agents, and 19 lawyers, and a partridge in a pear tree, what we came to the conclusion of is that there is no collusion, no obstruction, and it's a complete and total exoneration of this president. We could not be happier at that result. However, there's also some righteous anger in there as well, and there should be. And it's for the very reason you just talked about in the beginning of the segment. Someone should be held responsible for this 2-year, $25 million investigation.
Well, and I think there's really 3 issues because everybody's clamoring for the Mueller report to get released. That's going to be up to AG Bill Barr. We'll see how that goes. I certainly hope it is.
They don't want, by the way, they don't want the FISA warrant made public. Those same people, they just want the report made public. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you've got 3 issues. Look, we've all would like to see the report because once that comes out and there's nothing there, then I don't know what else the Democrats are going to cry about. But we've really got 3 things here. We've got the FISA application that went to a FISA court judge that originally, remember, when this first FISA court request for the eavesdropping surveillance on a presidential campaign, when that first was proposed or when the first application was first made, it was rejected by a FISA court judge because we don't know who the judge is because they're secret. That's how FISA is set up. So, but the first judge rejected it. Then they came back. Rosenstein came back a second time. I want to see everybody wants to see what was in that application. And did they utilize the fake dossier funded by Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Clinton campaign, made stuff up, the PP dossier, was that part of it? We want to know who is responsible for all the unmasking that went on. Remember that, right? With Stephanie Powers and National Security Director Rice. We don't know about that. And then the third thing is, What evidence did Rosenstein have to make the decision to go with a special counsel to start with? Because you have to have enough evidence to think there's a crime. I want to know, like, how is that decision even made? These are the answers that we have to have.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think we deserve answers to those questions. But I mean, this is just ridiculous at this point, as you pointed out. I mean, all the things that surrounded it, the impetus for this, where it was. But your montage hit on something I think that really needs to be kind of fleshed out too. It's not just people like Adam Schiff who went on and on about there will be indictments to the family and all of this kind of stuff. All of this nonsense by members of Congress. If there's one thing members of Congress are known for, it's nonsense. But these are the heads of the CIA, the FBI, the largest law enforcement agency on the planet, telling members of the press indictments are coming, telling members of the press there is evidence, stone cold, quote-unquote evidence, of Russia collusion. They carry a weight with them that is way higher than even someone in Congress. Mm-hmm. While Congress does carry weight, it's not like someone who's been in the intelligence community. And now to see the Clappers and Brennans of the world kind of throw their hands up and say, I guess it was just bad sourcing. I guess I just had bad sourcing. No. You don't get a get out of jail free card for that. I mean, when someone called me on Saturday and said we have confirmation that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is standing on the balcony at Mar-a-Lago, I laughed and said, well, then your source is wrong, because I'm standing on the balcony at Mar-a-Lago and Sarah's in Virginia and I just got off the phone with her. So that's a bad sourcing issue. For the head of the CIA, former head of the CIA, to go on television and say the president is about to get indicted, and I know for a fact that there is stone-cold evidence of Russia collusion, that's way more than a bad source. That borders on criminality. So I don't know what that means for the future of those individuals, but your montage, while funny, and now I guess maybe it did work because I'm more fired up than I was before, it proves a point that this wasn't just some rogue congressman with the wide-eyed, power-hungry move of trying to disparage a president and gain back some type of narrative in the world that a lie that they wanted to be true wasn't. These are people at the highest levels of some of these agencies pushing a lie, and that's a problem. That's a serious problem, and if you're an American citizen out there and you know that now Donald Trump was wiretapped, that his campaign was spied upon, and that they used a dossier to do it that's now fake and disproven and discredited, if any American citizen, that happened to anybody, I'd be desperately concerned about where we are right now.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. I'm your Godzilla of the truth. We're with the hoaxer, Hogan Gidley. He is the deputy press secretary to the president in the White House, and he's with us now. You're right, because it's one thing for, like, we played a clip earlier of Congressman from Northern Virginia, Jerry Connolly, basically spouting off and saying that Bill Barr set the whole thing up and he wants to see the report and he doesn't believe it, and et cetera. Well, you'd expect that from Jerry Connolly. That's what he does. He throws bombs and nobody takes him seriously, not even if you're in Arlington. But when you get former heads of the CIA like John Brennan and national security directors like James Clapper, who still have security clearance and still have access to this info, and they're getting on TV and they're telling you people are going to be indicted and the president is a foreign agent. I mean, these are things that they have to be accountable for saying, and then simply say, well, I had bad information. What the hell is that?
You just hit on it, too. Let's be clear. What they were saying, and so many on the left said, it wasn't that he had a few phone calls and tried to get some help. It was that he literally was either a puppet of a foreign entity or that he was a double agent working for Russia to take down the United States. And what's worse is that any American citizen, I mean, I'm a Republican. I was not happy with Bill Clinton as a president, but I would have been elated had Bill Clinton been accused of working on behalf of a foreign government and then been proven to be false, that he was actually the American president for everybody and was working on behalf of the American people and not Russia, I would at least say, man, that's a relief. I'm at least happy about that. Democrats are saying it's sad and disappointing that Donald Trump was not a foreign agent.
Incredible.
Wrap your head around that for a minute. They would rather him be guilty of working against this country than just being against his policy. They're upset at the fact that he was proven innocent in this ridiculous witch hunt hoax rather than him being found guilty. That's a dangerous place to be as well.
It is really, it's beyond sad. It's really a sick position now for the Democrats to be in. And the fact that none of them are owning up to this. You know, we were talking earlier, Hogan, I live in...
They're doubling down.
They're doubling down. And you know, again, I get Maxine Waters, Jerry Connolly. You know, I get all that. That's, you know, part of their shtick, and it's how they raise money. I get it. You know, but there's and I get Blumenthal from Connecticut that said he was in Vietnam and he cried. Okay, you take those people with a grain of salt. But when you've got, you know, ranking member of Intel Committee on the Senate like Mark Warner, who up to last week was still saying, even though his chairman Richard Burr said, I'm done. I've interviewed all these people. I've got all the committee reports. There is no collusion. There's no evidence. Case closed. Mark Warner was still saying, no, there's evidence. I can trace it. There's a chain. There's a string. There's dots. He was still saying that up until a week ago. I haven't heard a word from Mark Warner.
Beto said it yesterday, the day before yesterday, after the report had come out exonerating the president. And look, they're trying to say things like, well, it doesn't exonerate him. There's a clear line in there that says it doesn't exonerate him on obstruction of justice. Okay, listen, let's be clear about something. Prosecutors like Robert Mueller prosecute. They don't exonerate. But the only way they prosecute is if they have evidence to do so. And while we're on the subject, you cannot obstruct if you haven't broken the law, in that there is no collusion, so you can't obstruct for collusion if there was no collusion. It's absolutely ridiculous. But now you're watching Democrats bend over backwards, twist and form in shapes unseen or untold of in human history to try and make a narrative fit that doesn't exist. Now, I understand, while it was wrong, them trying to do it for politics, even though they didn't have any evidence and all of that. But now the evidence is out, and they're still saying these types of things. It's absolutely dangerous. It's ridiculous, and someone needs to be held accountable for this, because at this point, you cannot just go out and scream fire in a crowded theater. That's not the way this works, and they're continuing to try and do that to hurt this president, and it hurts the nation. Listen, I understand they don't like the fact that women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans are at the lowest unemployment rates in the world. Mm-hmm. I know they don't like the fact that 58% of the jobs filled in this economic boom have been filled by women. Mm-hmm. I understand the fact they don't like tax cuts. I understand the fact they don't like defeating ISIS and bringing our troops home. I understand the fact that they don't like us being friends with the only democracy in the Middle East, in Israel. I understand all of that. But that does not mean you get to go out and lie about someone unfettered with your accomplices in the media for 2 years with no evidence. That's a completely different battle to fight than I don't like his policies. And here's why I want us to go back to the way things were that was horrible for the last 8 years, and no economic growth and high taxes. They want to run on that, a Green New Deal and making America socialist. They can do all that. That's fine. But to run on this now is absolutely ludicrous, and the American people, quite frankly, they know it. And when you see the headline of even the New York Times, Mueller finds no Trump-Russia conspiracy. The Washington Post, Mueller finds no conspiracy. USA Today, no conspiracy. All the major headlines prove exactly what we've been saying, that nothing happened here. There is no collusion, no obstruction, complete and total exoneration. And for the Democrats to say anything other than that is a complete and total lie.
And they continue to do it, and it's astonishing to me, because I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think they should pivot now immediately not to give them advice, but they should just run their campaign on whatever their policies are and let the chips fall where they may, because this isn't getting anywhere. What about McCabe, Comey, Strzok, Page, or what happens to them? Is there going to be any accountability in that for them? Stephanie Powers, Rice, what happens? Lynch?
I'm not sure, and far be it for me to try and guess.
Right.
Listen, if I were a Democrat, I'd say, I know there are indictments coming, I promise. I've seen the evidence, right? But I'm not going to do that. I don't know the answer to that. The president has said many times that he thinks the other side should be looked at. I know Lindsey Graham is calling for that as well. I don't think that's an unreasonable position to take. But at the same time, obviously, I wouldn't be involved in any of those discussions, at least not at this point. But that's up to the Attorney General. It's up to the President if he wants to do something like that. But it's my understanding that there are many members of Congress on the right who are looking around saying we've got to hold somebody accountable for this. And the American people, I think, want that as well, because they've been sold a lie with, I think 8,500 stories in the last year from the from the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, all combined. I mean, it's just egregious what the quote unquote news community has done in this story and this ramp up, because they wanted it to be true. They wanted the narrative to be true that he colluded with Russia, because that's the only explanation. It couldn't be that Donald Trump was a better candidate with a better message and, Lord knows, a better work ethic. That couldn't be it. It's that someone had to cheat to get it done. But the facts come out, guess what? He went to states that Hillary Clinton was too important to go to. He talked to the American people that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats have forsaken, the forgotten part of the country, have forsaken for decades. He talked to African Americans and said, what do you have to lose? You're getting killed right now under Democrat policies, and sure enough, now they have the lowest unemployment in history. These are the types of things that Donald Trump did on the campaign trail that Democrats wouldn't and didn't do. And now he's the president, and the only explanation is he's got the policies and the prescriptions for solutions and a better country, and they don't.
Well, that is exactly it. And you just look at the facts and the results that this president have had. But I want to spend another minute, like you just said, Hogan Gidley. We're with Hogan Gidley, the hoaxer. He is Deputy Press Secretary to the President of the United States, and he's in the White House live in the West Wing. So, hoaxer, let me ask you this. You look at the legacy fake news, lying media, 8,500 stories that you just mentioned compiled. You look at CNN day after day after day. This is all they talked about was Russian collusion. They got to be the biggest loser in this, because they just went with this narrative that was based on absolutely no evidence, and they went with it for 2 years. Consistently.
They're looking around each other, and I watched when we left Mar-a-Lago and went to Air Force One. He went up under the wing of the plane to talk to the press, and he said there was no collusion, no obstruction, complete and total vindication. And usually they shout out questions. They didn't say a word when he walked away, because they knew they had nothing. I got emails from reporters who said, hey, are you guys hugging? Give us some color. Are you hugging? Are you popping champagne? Are you patting each other on the back? Because they knew it was a victory. And they're not saying that publicly, but they knew it was a victory. That's why they were asking for it. But look, 2 years of their lives is basically gone and has been a waste. 2 years of their profession has been a waste. They understand that. And now all they have to hold on to tightly is wrecked credibility and a dim future. I was laughing because I was looking at the New York Post this morning, the Metro edition, and at the front page it says Mueller Madness. Who got it most wrong? And it's got a picture of Don Lemon and Rachel Maddow and Alec Baldwin and Stephen Colbert. And you open it up, and they have a bracket, just really like funny. The NCAA tournament, of everyone from Brian Ross to Jimmy Kimmel to Kathy Griffin to Robert De Niro to Paul Krugman, all the way up to Morning Joe, John Brennan, etc. And you rate them, and you do just like a bracket to see who wins. It is very, very comical, but at the same time, as I mentioned, there's also some righteous anger here, because these people pushed that just because they didn't like the outcome of an election, and that right there to me, speaks to kind of the disgusting nature of not just politics, but of their desire for power. They'll do anything and hurt anyone to get it back, and that's where we are right now, and that's a sad place to be.
John Fredericks Radio Network, we want to thank the hoaxer Hogan Gidley for being with us. So my final question, Hogan, did you pop the champagne on the plane?
No, I did not. No champagne popped on the plane at all.
Did you?
We had a good time coming back, and we had a lot of conversation, shared some war stories, and went over kind of the last 2 years as it was. But the president doesn't like to sit and rest on any massive victory as it relates to legislation passed or signed, or a policy move, or the embassy moving to Israel or to Jerusalem. He just gets that and then goes on to the next thing. He's got that business mentality. That's why he's been able to accomplish so much. And, again, he was excited. We were all excited, and it's on to the next thing, and hopefully we can get a few more things done before the election. All
right, I hope so also. Hogan Gidley, the hoaxer, thanks for being with us. Deputy Press Secretary, White House. Always enjoy our conversations and the time. Hogan, thank you so much. And by the way, who do you predict is going to be the winner of the Mueller Madness bracket?
I don't know. I'm looking at it now, and I'm kind of torn because it's when you're looking at these teams like in the March Madness, you kind of go back and forth on some because you're not sure. There may be a few upsets, but you know who the kings of this bracket would be. The top seeds, and they're all the folks who've been running their mouths for the better part of 2 years, and now Donald Trump gets the last word. You want me to predict the two finalists? Yeah, please predict them. Don Lemon and John Brennan. Those are the finalists. And the winner, Don. They're on the same side of the bracket. Oh, then John Brennan's not but a 6 seed, and Lemon's a 2 seed. Lemon is going to the finals. Somebody's going to have to beat him. Oh yeah, because he spent 2 years. Of course, I got fired from CNN for fighting with him. But so that I wear that like a badge of honor. 3 years of fighting with him, and it's all I could do. It's all they could deal with me. They got rid of me recently. But Don Lemon spent 2 years. That's all he talked about. He's going to be the clear winner. Hogan, we're out of time. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thanks so much.